powered by Riverside.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. Whether you're on the floor with the changing pad, changing some diapers, outside grilling, or even mowing the lawn, welcome to the Young Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Jay, and today we have an incredible guest with us, Dan. Dan is a documentary filmmaker and a recent Emmy nominee. Dan, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm doing good. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, I'm so excited for the conversation we're going to have today. But before we get into that, just right here at the top of the show is where I take care of all the boring business stuff. If you haven't heard me talk about them, if you haven't seen me wearing these brands, if you don't keep up with me on Instagram, then you're probably missing out on Forefathers. What Forefathers is, Forefathers Apparel, they set out to create dad clothing that is above and beyond so that it can keep up with dads who go above and beyond. Their team of dad designers set out to build performance clothing because there wasn't an existing line that represented dad. In order to fit the dad lifestyle, they took our favorite dad-isms: donuts, grilling, the meat sweats, movie nights, 5 o'clock somewhere, beer me, mowing the lawn, all these amazing dad-isms, and printed them and put them on the best performing materials and made them to fit a dad bod. With the code YoungDad, you save 20% on your entire purchase, and you massively help out the podcast tremendously. And you can find that down in the description of this episode and on all social media with that little link in my bio kind of thing, as the kids say. So, a little about Dan. Like I said at the top, he's a documentary filmmaker and a recent Emmy nominee. After 5 years in film development at Columbia Pictures and 5 years working at Syco, Simon Cowell's production company, Dan decided to focus on stories exploring the human experience, humanity, spirituality, and social issues. He is the producer and director of the award-winning documentary Everybody Dance, currently on iTunes, Apple TV, and free on Amazon Prime. So if you have one of those, and I guarantee you probably do, you can check it out for free on Amazon Prime. 99% of us has Amazon Prime. Dan, he was also the producer of the award-winning film The Center, Gibbons and Guardians, featuring Jane Goodall. You're currently in production of a docu-series titled Women of Dance, an untitled documentary with Tony and Pulitzer Prize winner producer Daryl Roth. So, Dan, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit more about Everybody Dance, why it's a must-watch, why we should watch it. I know why I watched it, but tell us a little bit more about it, the story behind it, and just kind of how it all came to life.
Okay, well, Everybody Dance. I follow 5 kids with different disabilities and their families on their journey through life and towards their dance recital. It was a 10-month journey. I don't want the audience to get afraid. It is not a dance movie. The dance studio is the common bond of all these kids, and it brought them together, but it's a story of determination, dedication, confidence, and a community where they all feel they fit in. Where in like one of the kids in the story in the movie says, he didn't feel he felt he fit in at school, and he actually told his mom that story. So that's a touching moment. And at the studio, because they're surrounded with like-minded people and everybody's there to study dance, it's just one big happy family. So it's just how the arts are a great equalizer. It wipes away everything, and we're all equal when we walk in. Whenever in the movie, it's a dance studio, but it can be acting, it can be singing, it can be public speaking. There's we all walk in with a little bit of nervousness, and we get better and better as we go, and that's what this journey shows. It shows how they've taken the discipline and the repetitiveness of dance and doing the same warm up over and over, and how they took all those tools that they were taught and how they could apply them in everyday life. The parents were so welcoming to me and willing to share their stories on how they were able to adjust. But I think it's good, you saw it. It's good. I think any parent can learn from this if you learn with repetition. And yeah, one of the kids might have autism, so it might take 4 weeks longer than somebody else. But so what? It's repeating the same patterns and same activities to get them to learn something, which to me is just a general observation in life, in general.
I love that. I love that. And it's so
So,
good for portraying that. But within this, how did it even get started? Where did you pick up on the story? Where did you hear about the story? What was your first interaction? Like, what's kind of for some reason, I want to say ethos, but what's like, that's not the right word, but what's like the story behind the story? How did you come across these group of individuals and have this idea to create this documentary about this topic? Like, what was the drivers behind that?
well, I did not know what the specific movie was going to be when I started out on this journey. I wanted to tell a story, kind of recapping what I just said. How, if you studied the arts, did your mom, when you were younger, make you take piano lessons, and you didn't become a pianist? But how did that help you now as an adult? If you were in drama class, did that help you? Now you're running for city council, so you know how to speak in front of people. So that was my big view of how the arts can help everyone and how important they are,
Okay.
and arts matter. So that was my initial goal. And then what happened was, well, first I used to be a dancer, so we'll start there. And then I went from dancing in two dance companies to then teaching and then choreographing shows and then producing shows on Broadway. So when I was a teacher, I taught two girls that had autism, but I haven't thought about them. That was, 18 years ago. And I had a dream about Fran and her two daughters. And I thought, wow, why am I dreaming about Fran? Where did that come from? And I didn't give it any more thought. And then I had the dream a couple weeks later. And I believe that there is a higher power out there. And I believe if we're open to it, we are told and given clues like this. And I thought, this is my God poking me, saying, this is your movie. I am telling you how to get in to your movie. It's exactly what you want to say, how the arts can be applied in everyday life, but you're going to go through this. And I thought, well, I'm going to trust my instincts and I'm going to trust that dream, because I don't dream that much. And I thought, let's look into it. And I just started researching places all across America, conservatories, colleges, small studios. And then I just happened to find Bonnie, and her studio is called Ballet for All Kids. And it just happens to be in the valley north of me in Los Angeles. And I tried to avoid Hollywood. I thought, there's going to be nothing like this in Hollywood. Everyone in Hollywood is going to be taking dance to get in the next video. They want to be with, well, I'm dating myself. They want to be dancing with Britney Spears or Janet Jackson or
Yeah, they want to be in the next like Step Up movie
right,
or the next big
exactly. So
dance movie kind of thing.
right. And they're going to be so focused on that I would never find anything like this. And after all that research, I found out, oh, here it is, just, 2 hours away from me. So I reached out to her, and it took a while. We had some conversations, and I wanted to make sure that I did it right. And because I'm neurotypical, so I don't have autism or I don't have cerebral palsy or anything in any of those fields. But I wanted to make sure that the story was told right. So I'm hoping that as you watched it, you saw these kids and these parents telling their stories in their words. So as a filmmaker, I wanted to be a fly on the wall. And I think the director Morgan Spurlock, a renowned documentary filmmaker who just died a couple weeks ago, was my mentor. and he said, Dan, that no one else can tell this movie. You have done everything. You have taught dance, you have put on recitals, so you know every aspect of this film. This is meant for you. He said, go for it. So I did, and I think my past, everything lined up and came together. And I think one thing that when I speak at colleges and stuff like that, sometimes I get called to do talks like that, or on podcasts and stuff, more like positive affirmation and stuff. I always want people to believe and trust that every job you get, especially in like me in the entertainment world, my career has gone everywhere. That trust the job that you have now, you are going to learn something from it. And it is a stepping stone to your next job. And then that is the stepping stone to your next job. You might not realize it now, but it is leading you somewhere. And just accept that. And life is kind of easier that way if you just go, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be right now. And I tend to live my life that way. So yeah, that's what happened. And I met with the parents a few times and told them how I wanted to film it, that I wanted to learn from them. I wanted them to teach me something, and then hopefully through the movie, other people will also learn. It's an insight into a world that most of us don't get to see.
Absolutely. And there's a couple things I want to recap and hit on there. The first is the spiritual aspect of it. When you're intentional about certain things in your life, whatever it may be, whether it's about finding purpose, finding direction, finding love, finding the next job, finding your next opportunity, finding your next whatever it might be, finding the right deal, finding the right apartment, finding the right, all the things, right? Those things come in their due time, but they come in the timing that they're supposed to come, in the
Mhm.
ways that they come. And so if you're being intentional and you're paying attention, because it's not just going to be like a whole clear picture kind of thing. It's going to be a
Right.
breadcrumb trail to get you there. And you have to kind of just follow the breadcrumbs until it leads you to where you're supposed to keep going.
Mhm.
Asking more questions, talking to people, giving those thoughts that can't leave your head. Okay, exploring those thoughts, thinking about them
Right.
deeper, thinking, okay, why did this happen? Why can't I stop thinking about it? Why can't I give it up? Why can't I move on? Kind of thing. Because those things that you get fixated on, that get stuck in your head, it's not a coincidence. At least I don't believe that it's a
Right.
coincidence that these things happen in the direction and the order that they happen in. It's like breadcrumb trails, being close to buildings. Like, let's say you're at a certain spot and you could be looking for a job, and then you look over at that building and you ask your buddy or your friend who you're with, you're like, hey, what is that place over there? And it's like, oh, it's so and so, it's this building. Oh, I didn't even know that existed. Yeah, that's new, kind of thing. And you're like, huh, that's interesting, because that's the field. I'm looking for a job. That's a place. They're new, they're probably looking, kind of thing. And then bada boom bada bing, it's a match made in heaven kind of thing. um so it's really cool how that, there's that aspect to all this. But the other part I wanted to hit on here is how important it is to not just have those stories told of parents who have special needs children, but fully letting them tell the story,
Mhm.
fully letting them be in control of the story, because no one can tell it better than the parent of the children with autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, the struggles that they go through every single day, because that's a hard task in itself. Having neurotypical children, we'll never understand what that's like, kind of thing.
Right.
I'll never know, or at least I hope and pray that I'll never know, like, what that's like, how difficult that could be, what that commitment, what that time and effort takes. I see friends who are going through that, not going through it, but are blessed enough beyond what I am. How I like to see it is, and they're blessed with those special children because they're special people, and they're blessed with them. But just the struggles that they go through on a daily basis. Where I saw a video of a friend of mine, she posted that video of her and her husband crying and hugging because they finally got accepted onto state insurance for
Mhm.
their autistic son, kind of thing. There's a
Right.
big moment. Lots of doors open when you're on the state insurance, which is a weird political thing in itself, which we don't have to get into because that's
Right,
just
exactly.
it's
Yeah,
absolutely wrong that,
that's a different documentary.
yeah, that's a different one. I'll talk on that one because there's some issues there, limiting access and things like that. But that's the cool thing about this because I was in theater in middle school and throughout high school while also doing sports, while also doing leadership and other extra. I did so many extracurriculars in
Mhm.
high school; it was crazy. Same in college, I did improv and things like that. And those skills that I've taken from those things have really helped me down into my career to
Right.
be able to have that repetition or to be able to think on my feet or to be able to memorize like a set of like lines or a script or something I was supposed to say and then regurgitate it in a certain way with a certain manner and to add emotion into things or to take emotion away from things or to express things a certain way through words and body language and things like that that I can see on other people kind of subconsciously. I work in mental health now, so it's become more and more subconscious being able to see or not see those things. So
Mhm.
it's interesting and it's so important, especially for children who have special needs and are on the different spectrums and have the different disorders and things like that, that they have these foundational skills. And it's not something that you can just teach. It has to be learned in a controlled environment where they feel comfortable learning it.
Uh, yeah, I agree, and I think that that the the parents being around these kids every weekend for 10 months taught me so much, and it taught me, and I think the parents would agree, is that it is you learn so much about yourself also, so that you do see the blessings, you see the similarities, you learn from you you'll learn different. Every child will teach us something, no matter what. If you have a kid, I now have you know an 11-month-old grandson who every week I go over there, you're learning something new. You're learning how to react, catch him when he, watch what he's going to do next and all that kind of stuff, and his smile and stuff. So I think their time management is just different for everybody, and you just kind of have to adjust to whatever your child is giving you. And that doesn't mean that it has to do with autism or not, is that parents that just need to learn, or just how to adjust to what's in front of them. And we all do. And I think that's the one thing that I took away from this movie, is that we all have obstacles that are in front of us at the moment. It's called life. And we just have to learn how to maneuver and steer through that life. And everybody's experience and everybody's um walls that are put up, everything is going to be different that's put up in front of us, and we just have to learn to maneuver around it and make it work, and that's just what we do. And I think there was a huge turning point for me while I was filming, and it was about month 4. I was at Target, and it was in December, and it was before Christmas, and I had been filming for like 4 months, and I had some last minute Christmas shopping to do, stocking stuffers and stuff. And I walked down one of the aisles, and there was a little girl having a tantrum on the floor. And as I walked by, I thought, I wonder if she's on the spectrum, and I just kept shopping. And I didn't give it another thought. And when I got in my car, I started to cry. And I thought, my gosh, that switch in my brain had flipped. I didn't go, what a rotten kid. What a horrible parent. Why aren't they handling this? Why aren't they stopping this? Why aren't they, getting the situation underhand? I don't know what their story is. But my first thought was, I wonder if she's on the spectrum, and I just kept going. So I'm hoping that the movie can do that for others. When you're exposed and you get to see the similarities and the differences, you think different. And my entire outlook and perspective changed from that point on. And then and I'm glad, because then when I went back to film, we were doing more of the intimate scenes and the with the parents at home and stuff like that. So it gave me some more insight to, and that's when, like, when the little boy says he doesn't feel comfortable at regular school, but he does at ballet class. I was able to sit back and ask him a few questions, and we had been there for 2 hours, and he finally got comfortable and started talking. But then to be able to just step back and let him talk, and he shared this brilliant moment that he didn't even share with his parents, and we just happened to be there. And I think if we
Hmm.
just, as adults and as parents, and grandparents, look at that and just observe, we can learn so much from each other. Like listening to your podcast, which is why I'm here, because I listen to it.
Oh shucks. Oh shucks. No, you beat me. You must have been like on the same neuro path translink thing that I was on. Because the next place I wanted to go were what were some of those things that you learned throughout this process? And I think that's a very important one. That moment in Target, that's you losing your bias, losing your that's losing your bias, losing your preconceived judgment,
Right,
losing the stereotypes, and gaining empathy rather than just having sympathy. Like, oh man, I know kids are terrible, kids are the worst, right?
right.
Versus like, oh, I wonder if there's something actually wrong with her. No, well, okay, that sounded wrong. I wonder if there's like something more going on that I just don't know, kind of
Yeah, we don't know.
thing.
We don't know. Did the girl pinch her finger in the cart? We don't know the entire story that led to that
Hmm.
3 seconds that I happened to walk by.
Exactly.
There's so much that led up to it. And I think when you said stereotypes, that's a key word, I think. And I think that society labels people in in all categories by race, gender, class, sexual orientation. And I think that then these labels create these expectations in the person's mind, and then the people observing them. And I think that these expectations cause a lot of trouble, and the stereotypes, it can be unrealistic, and it just makes people make assumptions based on those stereotypes. And that's the switch that we need to flip in everybody's brain, because I can assume, you can walk by somebody and assume anything, and we
Hmm.
just don't know. So if we can shut off, or flip the switch with those stereotypes, and the world would be a better place, actually. you know
100%. And that's so important right there. The stereotypes. They create a limited or limiting belief system, as a way that you can look at it, because it limits your beliefs about that person if you have those stereotypes, whether it's age, race, gender, social class, neurodiversities, neurotypicals. Everyone has some kind of preconceived notion about them.
Right.
Me being a perceived Caucasian male, cisgendered Caucasian male, there's a certain set of expectations like for
Hmm.
me, kind of thing. But guess what? I'm actually mixed, biracial. I'm part African American. I grew up in East Oakland, kind of thing. Like I'm from the hood, kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Like, but there's like this set of expectations. Like you wouldn't know that just on first glance,
Right,
unless you like, unless you saw me walking with my dad. But then you would just think, okay, well, look, they're group of they look a little similar. Maybe they're like distantly related. So no, that's actually my dad. Yes, he's shorter than me and way darker than me, but guess what? It's still my dad,
right.
kind of thing. Trust me, there's been a DNA test had, but it's just one of those things. And so we could walk by anyone, and trust me, my kids have had their fair share of meltdown at Target,
Hmm.
plenty of meltdowns at Target. And one thing that's always driven me crazy just in general is just like when people look at you and or look at your kid having a tantrum and they just give that look,
Hmm.
kind of thing. And especially with being a dad and stuff, they'll look again and be like, oh, of course this is happening, like of
Right.
course, kind of thing. um but there's a limited belief system. If you look
Mhm.
at someone, I'm just going to use it as an example because I get it. You look at someone in a wheelchair, you have a preconceived idea, okay, that person They can't go upstairs. They can't walk. They can't probably can't play sports. They can't do certain things. This is the things that they can do, kind of thing. So this is how I'm going to have to accommodate them, kind of thing, even before knowing anything about them, kind of thing. And one area that I was blessed with when I was really, really young, I was in preschool. And one of my best friends in the entire class, I think I've shared the story on the podcast before. It's been a long time since I have, though. My best friend in preschool, his name was Michael. Michael was in a wheelchair. I didn't know why, but he was also very protective of his wheelchair, to the point where it was like, okay, only mom and teachers can touch my wheelchair. There's only one kid in the class that could touch his wheelchair. That was myself. I was the only kid that he would let touch his wheelchair. I was like, okay, cool. We would run around, play at recess, kind of thing. I would be like, hey, can you go down the slide? He'd be like, I can't, kind of thing. And I would like, okay, I'm gonna go, kind of thing. And like then it would be finding just something to do. But I didn't realize anything was wrong with him. It was like, oh, hey, do you want to do this? Cool, you can't do it. Okay, I'm gonna do it. I'll be back down in 20 seconds, kind of thing. Just in my little preschool mind. I didn't see nothing different with him. I wanted to include him. I wanted him to be just the same as everybody else. And to me, he was, kind of thing. But as we get older and we grow, that's when other people start to have that influence on us. They start to influence how we see the world, how we see color, how we see gender, how we see all these things. And those stereotypes are taught to children. They're
Mhm.
taught to kids, and they're continued to be taught to adults, to gullible people. There's a lot of gullible people in our country who think that you can catch autism by drinking out of the same water bottle. There's people who think that, okay, if you touch me, I'm gonna catch whatever you got.
Mhm.
Um, there's old jokes from back in the day, early 2000s, 1990s, where it's like you could catch the R word by touching someone who was,
Mhm.
kind of thing. And just these awful, terrible stereotypes that still really haven't gone away. And I'll give an example of that. In my cities that I live in the Tri-Cities in Washington. In Pasco, they're pushing this realignment of the high schools in Pasco. There's three of them. They're pushing this realignment of race and social class. No joke. It's segregation in 2024. It's no joke. So they're pushing all the low income. Pasco's very heavily Hispanic and Latino. They're pushing it from pretty diverse, where it's like most schools are about 80% Hispanic, Latino, and the rest of the 20 is made up of other populations, things like that. And then they all have like a mix of low income in there. It's like normal high school. Some areas going to have like an 80-20 split, kind of, maybe 70-30. It's never really a true like equal chop up. Um, but what they're doing with this realignment is one of the high schools would have the highest amount of Hispanic, Latino, and the highest amount of low income at the same time would all be within this border at this one school. The next school would be about 70, about again, that 70-30 split, 70 Latino, 28 white, and then whatever else after that. But then a much lower percentage of what's the word? Low income. And then the same for the next high school, where these splits were just insane. And I saw this and I'm like, there's no, like, this isn't real. Like,
Right.
this isn't real. This isn't happening in a neighboring city. There's no way. But sure enough, they're voting on it at the school board level. And so pretty much they're going to disparage one high school, let it be run
Right.
down, the low income school, run down that
Well, and then
area kind
they'll
of thing.
and I think some of my understanding from talking with people at PTAs and teachers is that sometimes the school funding is based on the grades and the attendance. So if that school then if the grades slip because teachers don't want to teach there, so the teachers, it's a whole it it affects every aspect of that school because then they'll receive less funding, then
Hmm.
less teachers will want to work there because the pay might go down. There's just so many things that are affected by these little tweaks that are happening at our level, at the community level, which is why we always need to be involved uh, on that level too, because that's where it starts. We elect our local officials who then go on to become the next level. So we always need to be involved and always fighting for whatever it is. And right now mine is fighting for the inclusion. The importance of inclusion and accessibility. It goes back to your friend on the playground. In the movie, you'll see that lovely girl who is in a wheelchair, but what the wonder and amazement of Bonnie, the teacher and owner of the studio, is that, okay, so she's in a wheelchair, I will adjust part of the dance to fit her. And she was featured and she had her part, and it was just made part of the choreography. So it wasn't a big deal. It just worked. And we can all do that in every day we get a chance to raise awareness and a chance to work together to remove these obstacles. And we have the opportunity to work towards inclusion. And we just have to be conscious of it. And we can build a community that is committed to creating a world where everybody can do well and succeed. And we just need to recognize it and be a part of it and support it. And it could be as simple as, in your local school district, do we need to raise money so there's a ramp for anyone who needs it to get into the school? It can be that simple. And that's a local level that people can get involved with to make it a more inclusive environment for everyone. And it doesn't need to be someone with a disability. I know as my mom got older, she had a stroke, so she couldn't do steps. So ramps are necessary. Ramps are necessary for many people. I had surgery. I needed ramps for a couple months
Yeah.
because I had danced a little too hard and had to get my hip replaced. One of the one of the downfalls of it. But there's just so many ways we can get involved on so many levels.
Yeah. And
And
it really comes down to what's more important, and at least in the school district case, right? What's more important, proximity or being less impoverished when it comes to ramp? What's more important? A couple $100 you pay to a company to come and pour some concrete, or being able to make sure all your students can easily get to school and you create that equal
right,
access? What's more important, the money or the impact on the lives kind of thing?
right.
And that's what it really comes down to in this case, especially. And it just blew my mind when someone sent this over to me. It's nuts. It's insane. Um, just how these numbers shake out and how they thought this was a good idea, and how their main argument is that it's more about how far they travel, neighborhood demographics, feeder school enrollment numbers, safety and transportation.
Well, you can create a document to fit whatever you want it to say.
Yeah.
You can spend enough time online to find something to back what it is you believe. And that's what a lot of people can do. You can research something and research it to find and go, aha, that's exactly what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But you read 19 articles, you finally found it in 20 on the 20th one. The other 19 were totally the opposite, but you found the one that agrees with what you're saying. You're like, see, told you I was right.
Mm-hmm.
It says right there.
Exactly.
Well, the other 19 didn't say it,
Exactly.
So
And I think this applies to disabilities too. If you put all the students with some kind of disability into their own school, guess what? That denies them diverse. And this is a direct quote from community members when commenting on this the segregation. Segregating students denies them the diverse learning opportunities essential for empathy and understanding. Look at
well,
how hard it was for us in America to overcome segregation.
mhm.
Even after World War II, there was still a lot of segregation. There was legal segregation in the United States. This is a prime example of that. It was rampant in the housing market. The FHA loans that you get, lo and behold, those were rooted in racism, post World War II, de jure segregation. Um, and so it just, if you put all these kids of the same demographic and income levels, they never understand anything else. They just think that's normal to have bad teachers, poor education, lack of opportunity, little diversity. But guess what? If someone goes to that school that's like a little better off, like a family moves in or whatnot, then that kid is now the target of all this hate and discrimination because they have a slightly better life, kind of thing. But if it's a mix, if it's a balanced mix, a 60-40, a 65-35, a 55-45 kind of split between the demographics, you get to learn all those things. You get exposure to different perspectives. You learn to thrive in an interconnected world, versus a cycle that perpetuates poverty and inequality, denying marginalized students support and opportunities to break free, which I think is a great example of within your work of Everybody Dance. It shows how these kids are able to break free of those limitations, of those limiting belief systems that everyone sees and has for them, where they just get to be free and
Well, and
flow and thrive.
that's also a big, what makes it work is that Bonnie, it's in the title of it's in the name of her school, Ballet for All Kids. In these ballet classes, there are kids that are neurotypical. Not everyone in there has a disability. Anyone and everyone is welcome to that class. So what it does is everybody helps everybody. Everybody gets along with everybody. You're learning from everyone, the person next to you, because they're your partner in the dance. Okay, well, what it did is in this dance is it taught me part of, I've been in, over 50 musicals. So you always have to carry a prop, or the stage goes dark and you have to move a set piece off, or I have to carry you off stage because you fainted. There's always something. So if I'm dancing in a dance recital and the girl next to me, it has walkers, and you can see it in the movie, those two girls, they made the choreography because she couldn't walk by herself. She had to have her hand walkers. Well, what Bonnie did is this brilliant thing. She took the two girls that were on each side of her and made it then a trio dance, and they helped her maneuver on the stage, and it turned into this beautiful piece to observe. And it was just, they all came together as a community and worked together to create this beautiful thing. And we can all, I hate to say it, but it's really that simple. It's like, I can't, Bonnie solved the problem. Everybody works together with one final goal in mind, and their final goal was to put on a dance recital. And that can be every school board meeting, that could be every city council meeting. Come together, work together towards the one set goal, to one purpose, to create the best thing possible for everyone.
100%. And
And
that's one thing oh, go ahead.
and who knew that that would all come from a ballet teacher? See, arts
Right?
are important.
They are. And arts are so important. And unfortunately, that's one thing that people really haven't, like, really cared about, you know? Like, it's so easy to kind of do away with those because we just see them as extracurriculars. We just see them as an extra fun and extra thing that nobody really gets anything from this. And it's kind of just brushed off and put to the side. And it's
Yeah,
unfortunate.
but now look at going off of what you just said. If people would realize how many people in your audience, or sit down and watch uh, TV on any streaming device, or channel 4, everybody in there is an artist. You have the actors, but you also have in almost every show now and every commercial has a choreographed number in it. There are
Hmm.
people who studied lighting who probably came from the stage, so the arts are important because they you now have a sound person and a lighting person involved. You have a choreographer involved. What about the music you hear in the background? That's a musician. So there's an orchestra that recorded that music that is behind the movie that you're watching. And if you think about it that way, look at how many artists who studied the arts somewhere so you could watch Tom Cruise jump out of a plane.
Right.
I mean, that
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom in the
Hmm.
soundtrack that gets your heart going. The whoosh of the wind that goes by.
Hmm.
That was done with a sound guy who learned sound somewhere. He's not
Hmm.
up in the clouds just with a recorder.
No, right.
It's not quite that easy. So
Yeah,
if
someone
people
had to
would look at it
compose.
that way,
Yeah, someone had to
yeah,
compose
every
that
component.
do 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 do
Yep,
do do do, and someone had to put it together. Someone had to put the beat
yep,
together. Someone had to edit it. Someone had to care. I mean, it comes down to someone had to care about making a creative project at some point. Someone
right.
had that idea to like, okay, I need you to make a dramatic theme for me.
Mhm.
Okay, something dramatic that gets the heart racing. Okay, how about this? We do, no, not quite, kind of thing. And it went through a process. It went through trial and error and practice and repetition. And
Yep,
then finally, someone got it. And it was like that perfect sound and it matched perfectly, kind of thing. Because it's art. It ultimately every
yep,
movie we watch is art.
yep,
Voice acting is an art. For every movie you watch, voice acting is an art. Someone who learned how to act first and then learned, okay, I can do this with my voice and just inflection and learning how to manipulate tones and voices and do these things at a high level. It's a talent of mine, so I can do it in this essence, kind of thing, or all these different aspects of it, like you're saying. And it all started somewhere at some point, and it all started with something artsy
well, and
and some
animation started with somebody drawing, and then some
hmm
art teachers showing them how to draw it. I just saw an interview, it might have just been last night or the night before, with Ryan Reynolds talking about Hugh Jackman because of their Deadpool Wolverine movie coming out.
That's gonna be so good.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait. I
It's
can't
gonna be
wait.
so good.
And Ryan said that he has never worked with anyone that was so prepared in fight scenes than Hugh Jackman. And he said because of him being in musicals and a dancer, all the choreography of the fight scenes, Hugh was ready to go. And Ryan said there were times where I thought, "Oh my God, he's just going to hit me in the face." But because Hugh Jackman had taken ballet class, he knew how to, swing his arm and not hit him because he had danced with women on stage and didn't hit them. I don't want to make it sound trivial because then there's stunt people too, but
Hmm.
this was Ryan Reynolds saying, I have done 3 action movies in a row, and no one made me feel as comfortable as you and was as prepared as you were, and that was because he studied dance.
Yeah. And Hugh Jackman just he's one of the greats in my eyes, just
Mhm,
for how diverse his portfolio is. From Oklahoma to Les Mis to Greatest Showman to Wolverine to all the other things that he's done, all the other musicals that I didn't mention, um, to now still doing it into I don't even know how old that man is,
he's in his
50s,
50s. Yeah,
60s, like just absolutely just so talented, singing, dancing, the way he moves, action, the way he acts, the diverse
mhm,
amount of roles he's taken on, country western to
mhm,
serious to dramatic to singing and all these things is just Hugh Jackman is just so amazing at his craft. And that's what it
mhm.
truly comes down to. Like it's a craft, it's a skill, it's a blue collar performing job pretty much, because it takes hours upon hours upon hours of hard work and dedication. I think a good example of that is Sing 2. Sing 2 really
Yeah,
shows you kind of that behind the scenes and
mhm,
how much work it took. The trials, the time that, the gorilla kid took to go out of his way because the dance instructor wasn't working. So he went and found his own, and it worked
Mhm.
for him. He spent just day and night and day and night. But he had to, and sing one, he had to do it behind his dad's back because his
Right.
dad didn't approve of him. So that kind of leads me to a point here that I wanted to get to kind of closer to the end
Mhm.
here. What are some of those things that you, while interacting with the dads of these children, what are some of those like takeaways from the father figures, male figures in their lives that were either in the movies or weren't on screen that you had and those conversations and things like that? Like what do you feel are some of the things that dads can gain from everybody dance, whether from your experience behind the scenes or on camera that's portrayed?
I think one thing, and it's the first couple. It's Liam's parents in the movie, the boy on the couch. His dad, I actually just went up and saw them like 4 weeks ago. His dad felt guilty and had to get over that because he had to go to work, and so he could have the money to pay for the medical bills while they were trying to find out, you know, where Liam was on, and they found out it was autism. But the mom was the one who then spent the day with Liam and came up with these lessons. And, this is where you need to put your coat, and they do it every day, and they mark it every day. And then Jamie would come home, the dad, and he would have Liam put the coat. He'd say, "Come on, Liam, let's practice putting your coat away." And the mom would say, "Oh, we finished that last week. We're now moved on to the lunchbox." So he had to learn to get over his guilt that he had to go work and had to work 2 jobs to cover the bills, so that his wife took on that responsibility, and it was eating him alive because he wasn't participating, and he felt he was behind. And then what do you do? How do I participate, take some of the pressure away from my wife? And he shared more of it off camera in regards to that. That was his biggest thing, was to get over the guilt, and it was just to communicate with his wife and to talk about the shared responsibilities. And that the wife saying, time wise, you can't be with him while he's awake. I'm here when he's awake because he's still young, and this is what we're learning. This is what we're working on. But what you can do is then you can wash the dishes in the sink, and you can do the laundry, which gives her time to then recharge her battery, her time to relax and recharge her battery after she puts the kids to sleep. So it was learning how to communicate with his wife and work out a system that worked for them, so there was no resentment and he didn't have to feel guilty. So again, I think so many men take on that responsibility in regards to, I have to be the provider, and he had to take on 2 jobs because they needed it at that time. And then going back to what you said a little earlier, but I don't want to steer the conversation too much, is that then when they got accepted and got state assistance, he was able to quit one of the 2 jobs. So then he was able to participate. Then he was able to go to dance. He was able to pick Liam up at dance after dance class and drive him home and talk to him, and found out what helped. And, what did you learn today? So, um, yeah, and the other father breaks down during the recital. I don't want to say too much, but that's one of my favorite scenes. And he was just overwhelmed with what his daughter had accomplished because he didn't see the day-to-day activities like the mom did. And then to just see his daughter up on stage performing, he just was overwhelmed. And I think a lot of parents, when your kids finally achieve something, no matter what it is, you see them every day, so you don't see the big picture. And then when you get to see the big picture, you're like, wow, that's my kid up there. Or, out on the baseball field or wherever it is, that's
Mm,
my kid over there.
yeah, just an overwhelming sense of like pride
Right.
and proudness and just emotion can overcome you in those moments. It's kind of like every like 90s movie to where like the dad was like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
It's
be there
funny.
kind of thing. And the kid just goes and does the thing, and then finally at the last time of the season or the last event, dad shows up
At the very in the
and
back of the room, yeah.
in the back of the room, side of the field in the outfield,
Yeah.
edge of the football field, just popping his head around the gate, seeing you make the game-winning play,
Right.
and then you look over and you see him, and it's just like, wow, he
Mhm.
saw it. And then the dad's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we missed all this. Blah, 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 blah. The Hill, which is a really cool story, baseball theme movie, talks about a little boy who had like leg braces on. It's kind of like baseball Forrest Gump, if I had to put it into like
Okay.
a context there. It's really cool. It's called The Hill. This little boy, he had these leg braces on and then overcame the leg braces through playing baseball, but then dad was a pastor and never really supported the whole baseball thing for him. So he never went to a game his entire life, from when he was little to when he was all the way in senior in high school. Finally, he went and seen him, and it was like begrudgingly, and then it was just this big beautiful moment in the movie that was depicted. So it was really cool. But yeah, it was like actually what had like happened, and it was kind of cool. So
Yeah, and hopefully the movie will show, everybody can learn lessons. Families can watch it together and learn, and to know that you're not the only one. Like this father, it doesn't matter if your child has autism or not. There are just some families that have to work two jobs. And to, the husband to know that all husbands are feeling that guilt. Well, hopefully. I mean, you would hope that he's missing his kids and stuff like that, but sometimes you just have to do what you got to do to survive, and to keep plugging forward, and try to make it.
100%, 100%. And a lot of dads feel that way, to where like they're missing out, that they're failing in some way, that heavy sense of guilt and shame when it comes to missing out, pretty much. Like they're
Mhm.
not doing enough, even though they're doing everything that they need to be doing, between whether it's working multiple jobs or doing all the things at home and saying, okay, what can I do to help them? What can I do to support you? What can I do to show that I'm involved here? I know I'm not involved in this way, but what can I do when I am
Right.
here, kind of thing. Having those conversations, that's a big, huge step of the whole equation here. That's a
Yeah.
big part of it. Even asking your wife or your spouse or your partner, whatever that demographic in that situation looks like for you, saying, hey, I know I'm off doing, work, or I travel for work, or I work really long shifts, or whatever that may look like. But when I am here, what are the things that would be beneficial for me to do that would help you and would help little Timmy or whatever, little
Right.
Sarah, kind of things like that, to make an impact while I
Mhm.
am around, kind of thing. So just having those conversations is a huge important piece of all this. Uh, Sorry about the barking in the background, everybody. I'm not sure if that's getting picked up on, but they're loud, so I'm sure it is. But let's get wrapped up here, shall we?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, before we wrap up here, I do want to give a shout out to just our closing sponsor of the podcast, our closing partner of the podcast here, June app. You've heard me talk about June a bajillion times on the podcast. Nearly every week, every episode, I'm talking about June because I love them. I believe in them. I support the brand. I support the product. I use the product. I use the app. My kids use it. It's fantastic. What June is, Joon. The June app is fantastic. It helps if your kid struggles with habits, routines, maybe they have ADHD, maybe they're on the spectrum, maybe they just struggle in general, maybe they're neurotypical, but they just struggle in these areas, completely normal. And they just need a little boost. So, but they also love video games. What kid doesn't, honestly? June mixes a video game that kids love with the opportunity to build habits and routines in a very positive, constructive way, to where you as a parent, on the parent app side of it, you get to go in, set their routines that you want them to build, put the daily task in that you want them to do, Monday through Saturday, or Monday through Sunday, and Sunday through Monday, every day of the week, weekends, time of day, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever the area time of day that they're struggling with. You can put in those habits and routines that you want them to build, assign a coin value to it. They complete these things, but they don't get the coins right away, which is really cool. If they complete it, it goes to you. You have to review it. you can just say, okay, cool, I bet you did it. It's great. And then they're playing you and they're beating the system kind of thing. Or you can manipulate June to help you have better, more positive conversation. So, kid says they clean their room. You go and you check and verify the room. It's halfway clean. Guess what? You then, in the moment, get to have a conversation saying, hey, your room's kind of only halfway done. It's really not what I was expecting. Not the job I was expecting. So, how about this? I'll give you a chance to redo it to earn all your coins, or I'll give you just half the coins and we can try again tomorrow with the same task. Opens the conversation, opens the dialogue, gives them a chance to redo, and it helps you guide them through the process to meet expectations. It's fantastic. If you want to try the June app, go down to the link in the description of the episode. I have a direct to listener link that you can click. You can download the app, try it for free. If you love it, you can use the code that I provide for you, Young Dad, YNGDAD, to save some money off your annual subscription for June. So, without further ado, Dan, what are some of, I guess, closing thoughts, closing pieces of advice, closing big ideas, concepts that you would want to leave here at the end in relation to Everybody Dance and the things that are learned through watching it that you personally took away and that you would want to share?
I would say it would, if people would just wake up in the morning and this is a broader, but it helps with this also, is just to be attuned, just to be aware and wake up and clear your mind and think of watching what's around you and being in tune to what's going on, and think of the word inclusion. And that goes not just with the movie Everybody Dance, but it goes further than that. Think of the word inclusion and what can you do to be a part of making that the bigger message. And one way to do that is what Bonnie did, is there's the studio called Ballet for All Kids. It's an all-inclusive studio anyone can take there, and we should just all live our life that way. And one thing for your audience to know and you to know is that July is Disability Pride Month. So it will be free on Amazon Prime through July, and we just added Tubi. So it will also be free on Tubi through July.
Awesome.
In support of Disability Pride Month.
Awesome. And it's just the beginning of July when this is airing live to the people. So what timing there for everyone to go ahead and go watch this. Now you know a little bit more about it. Now you know a little bit more about the backstory. Now you know a little bit about the man, the myth, the legend behind it. Dan here. So Dan, thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you for this amazing conversation. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you to you guys for listening, sticking with us throughout this whole episode, the conversation that we had. I surely hope that you were able to gain something and take away something, and that you're firing up your Amazon Prime right now to go ahead and watch this amazing documentary. And I'm excited for all the work to come here in the near future from you that you're working on, and to just see what the next ripple of all of this work that you're doing unfolds to be. So
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I love your podcast.
thank you so much. All right, guys. Well, until next time, make sure you do all the things that you can do. Leave a review, leave 5 stars, subscribe if you're watching this on a video platform. Leave a comment, leave some feedback, interact on Spotify with the polls or the questions, and go over to Instagram or Threads or wherever and interact and do what you can there. So, with that, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed your juice box. Hope you enjoyed your snack, and we'll talk to you next time here on the podcast.